les agradecemos a nombre de la Sociedad Estudiantil Yucateca de Ingenieros en Alimentos el estar aquí. Esperemos que este evento sea de su agrado y tengo el honor de presentar a la doctora Jenny, que es una auténtica mujer renacentista. Ella nos va a compartir parte de su experiencia que ha tenido en la industria de la ingeniería en alimentos. Tiene una vasta experiencia no solamente en México, sino en diferentes países. Y la conferencia de hoy está titulada como What Are We Eating? Esperemos que sea de su agrado, que puedan aprender mucho sobre temas del fraude alimenticio y que también puedan después ponerlos en práctica.
Buenos días a todos y muchas gracias para la invitación de presentar. Hoy voy a presentar en inglés. ¿Es bueno para todos?
No.
Ok. Desafortunadamente mi español más o menos es posible. Año próximo puedo presentar en español, pero hoy voy a presentar en inglés despacito y pueden entender y practicar, escuchar inglés. Ok, el tema es ¿qué comemos? ¿Qué comemos? El tema de comida falsa. Hay mucha comida falsa en el supermercado, en eventos, y es necesario conocer cuando hay comida falsa. ¿Qué hacemos? Es necesario vigilancia. ¿Sí? Ok, so voy a discutir eso. Tengo ejemplos de comida falsa de Walmart. Compré eso y no sé. Y cuando yo voy a mi casa y probar, ¡oh, comida falsa! Y gasto mi dinero y perdí mi dinero. Ok. Voy a empezar una introducción en mi vida en alimentos y definitions, food fraud, adulteration, examples of food fraud. I'm going to show you some videos, some very interesting videos where you will see many examples. Ejemplos de comida falsa. Tenemos muchos videos. Y también cómo podemos ver en el supermercado qué es falso, qué no es falso. And then food manufacturers, fábricas de alimentos, qué programas es necesario si tiene una fábrica de alimentos. Cómo controlar ese problema. Okay. So, mi historia. Estudié en Canadá. So I studied biochemistry in Canada, did a Bachelor of Science degree, a Master's degree in food technology, and then a PhD in food science and molecular genetics, again in Canada. Then I worked in Florida. I did a postdoctoral research fellowship at Florida A&M University. And the subject was post-harvest handling of grains. So it was an introduction to agriculture. I worked in California at a company that grew vegetables and strawberries and helped them implement food safety programs in the farms and also in pack houses where they were packing and selling vegetables and fruits to supermarket chains throughout the United States. They also sold strawberries. And this company was based in Southern California, so there were many employees from Mexico and Guatemala working at this company. I then worked with Dole Food Company. They're one of the world's largest growers of bananas and pineapples. And my job entailed looking at food safety and quality assurance programs for the growing operations like in Costa Rica, Honduras, Ecuador, wherever they were growing bananas and pineapples. I would go and visit the farms and the pack houses to do inspections. That's a picture of me at a pineapple plantation in Costa Rica. So you're looking to see what controls were in place in the farms for food safety as well as quality assurance, from harvesting to packing to shipping on these big ships, sending product around the world. I later worked at a similar company in Dublin, Ireland, to get European work experience. And this company, my portfolio was temperate fruits, so pears and apples that were being imported into Ireland, Ireland. So in Ireland, I started my own business making condiments and sauces. So that my brand, Marca, is a fue taste of the Caribbean. So salsas, and I appeared on television, a program called Irish Dragon's Den, where I did a business pitch for these millionaire investors who were thinking about investing in my business. So if you look on YouTube, you will see the interview where Jenny was presenting to the Irish Dragons who wanted to invest in her business. A very interesting video to watch because I had a hot sauce here, and when they tasted it, the salsa muy picante, it's like, so it blew them away. All right, I also have some publications. So I published this textbook, Microbial Hazard Identification in Fresh Fruits and Vegetables. So talking about microbial contamination in the fields where people are growing fruits and vegetables. And this one is publication commissioned by the Food and Agriculture Organization, talking about fresh cut tropical fruits and vegetables, a technical guide. So I went back to Canada after living in Ireland and worked as a consultant for food companies. I also taught at a college in Toronto, Canada, where we developed some new food technology courses for students who wanted to get into the food industry. I worked as a quality assurance manager for a big sushi company. They had factories making sushi. Everybody likes sushi here? Oh, have you tasted it? Yes, so this company, they had sushi bars in supermarket chains, like over 1,000 supermarket chains, or supermarkets in Canada, and they actually had big factories making prepared meals, Japanese style meals. So I was a quality assurance manager for that company. And following that, I trained as a food safety auditor. So I would audit food companies in Canada, United States, and Mexico to make sure they had good food safety standards. And now a lot of my time is spent training people in industry, training auditors, training managers of food companies, mostly in Mexico, Canada, United States. So I would train managers, what are good food safety practices, quality assurance practices. So that's a bit about it. Now let us look at a definition for food fraud. Comida falsa. So food fraud, the deliberate, intentional action to deceive consumers about food products, content, quality, or authenticity for financial gain. And you see that? Financial gain. Sometimes it's to cause harm, to make people sick, right? Through methods like substitution, dilution, mislabeling. Who can tell me what is mislabeling? What does that mean? Yes.
Que lo que indica la etiqueta no corresponde a lo que contiene el alimento.
Sí, sí. So mislabeling, una etiqueta falso, okay? Counterfeiting, making false claims. So they say this product is very nutritious, it has this ingredient in it, when in fact, no it's verdad. So hay muchas compañías que ponen información falsa en etiqueta. ¿Por qué? Porque puede ganar más dinero. Okay, es como se dice mafia de alimentos. Existe en verdad en muchos países diferentes. So this broad term encompasses actions like replacing more expensive ingredients with cheaper ingredients. So ingredientes, verdad, algunas veces son muy caros y algunas fábricas de alimentos pueden poner ingredientes falsos, más baratos, y eso, pero etiqueta dice, oh, 100%, pero no es verdad. Okay, es un problema en la industria. Sometimes they use cheaper or unapproved substances, right? And this can damage consumer trust. So, because if the consumer finds out, they'll say, okay, I'll never buy that product again, right? So damaging consumer trust is a problem, or it can actually make people sick, which is another terrible problem. So food fraud is the act of purposely altering, misrepresenting, mislabeling, substituting, or tampering with any food product at any point along the farm to table supply chain. So what that means is if the food starts with ingredients produced at a farm, then it goes to the factory, it's packaged, it goes on a truck, then it goes to the supermarket, then it goes to somebody's house. So when they say the food supply chain, at any point in the chain, somebody could tamper with the product and put something in it, right? So we have to be vigilant. Key aspects of food fraud: intent. Intent means the act is done on purpose to deceive people. Intent. Economic gain. So when we talk about food fraud, the people who carry out food fraud, they want to make more money. That's what they want, more money and less effort. So the primary motivation is usually financial advantage, such as reducing production costs, increasing perceived value, deception, fooling people, right? That's one of the main aspects of food fraud. So the goal is to mislead consumers about the food's true identity, quantity, or quality. So it can occur anywhere in the food chain. Another definition: economically motivated adulteration. So putting false ingredients in the food to make more money. When you think of economically motivated, that's why some really bad companies do this, to make more money. So here again, you see a diagram showing different aspects of food fraud: mislabeling, dilution. Who can give me an example of diluting food to make money? Can anybody think of an example?
Le está diciendo que algo que está diluido, que no tiene la concentración normal. Si conocen algún ejemplo.
Okay, let's say you have honey.
This one.
The orange juice?
Yes. So people can say, okay, this bottle has 100% jugo de naranja. En verdad es 50% y diluted with agua. Okay? Pero puede ganar más dinero. So dilution, that's a problem. Gray market production or theft, right? Using a genuine brand name, but you are not the company, you just put another company's brand name. people buy the product, they say, oh, that's a good, it's a great marker. Pero no es su marca, pero poner en la etiqueta. So gray market production, unapproved enhancement, substitution. So putting fake ingredients instead of the real ones. Concealment, hiding the facts. All right, tenemos una video.
Care for some wood pulp on your sketty? Enjoy a hot lentil latte? Sipping a dirty chloroform teeny? When it comes to these culinary fake-outs, the joke's on you. You've probably suspected that the Parmesan cheese that comes in a can and doesn't have to be refrigerated might not actually be Parmesan cheese. And depending on which brand you buy, you might be right. Back in 2016, Bloomberg News reported that Castle Cheese Inc. was plumping up its cans of so-called 100% real Parmesan cheese with, wait for it, wood pulp. As you might know, goats can eat wood pulp, so technically it could be described as food. But you're not a goat.
That's shocking. That's disgusting.
Here's the thing. The Castle cheese wood pulp appeared in the form of cellulose, which is commonly used as an anti-clumping agent in food, but content shouldn't exceed 2% to 4%, and it can't be added just to bump up the weight, and therefore profit to the product. The company's 100% Parmesan also didn't contain any Parmesan. Instead, they used cheaper cheeses like white cheddar and mozzarella. For most of us, white fish just looks like white fish, and we count on grocery store labeling to tell us what we're buying. But seafood suppliers know this, and that's why they sometimes get away with mislabeling a cheaper piece of fish as something more expensive. After all, once it's fried up and drenched in lemon juice, even a professional chef might not be able to identify it. According to conservation organization Oceana, roughly 21% of commercially available fish isn't correctly labeled. This means when you drop $32 per pound on what you think is Chilean sea bass, you might actually be buying tilapia, which sells for less than $10 a pound. Now you know you can just pick up the tilapia, ditch the packaging, and call it whatever you want. Speaking of not being able to pinpoint proteins, there's a good chance you can't tell the difference between beef and horse meat either. Let's just think back to 2012 and 2013, when the fine people of Britain were eating hamburgers that were 29% horse meat, and that had been going on for at least...
Okay, so era un problema con la hamburguesa. Personas piensan que es carne de res, pero carne de caballo. ¡Qué horrible! So eso es problema.
Care for some...
Alright, so hay muchos problemas en realidad. Demasiado problemas. Okay? So, en el pasado, 2013, un problema grande con la hamburguesa que se venden en Tesco, Lidl y Tyson Ali. So these are supermarket chains in Inglaterra, okay? Y muchas personas compran en esas tiendas, muy popular. So there was a huge percentage of horse meat in the beef burgers, and nobody knew until somebody did test. So now, for big purchases, they're doing DNA testing to detect if you have horse DNA in the beef burgers, because you cannot trust the manufacturers anymore. This one now, see?
Your olive oil may not be what it claims to be.
A couple of years ago in southern Italy, the police were spying on an organized crime network. Their undercover footage shows these large tanker trucks passing into their compound. They started tracking these trucks with GPS and found that the trucks were loaded with oil. They were delivering this oil to markets and restaurants in Germany. They were selling it to buyers who thought that they were buying high-quality, extra virgin olive oil from the best olive regions in the world. After many months of this investigation, the police finally busted into the compound. And what they found is that these criminals were importing cheap seed oil that cost them just over €1 per liter, but then they were coloring it with like chlorophyll to make it look like olive oil. They even had the machinery to bottle this oil and to label it with the important words extra virgin olive oil with a nice little Italian flag on it. At the height of their operation, they were selling around 23,000 liters per week to customers in the north for 5 to 10 times the cost that they bought this cheap seed oil for. The police estimated that they were bringing in around €8 million a year. In the end, 24 people were arrested and 150,000 liters of fake olive oil were seized.
All right, I need 3 volunteers, please. 3 voluntarios, por favor. Tengo productos que compré en Walmart.
Son productos de Walmart.
Productos de Walmart.
¿Se puede un cuarto voluntario? ¿Un cuarto voluntario?
Bueno, tengo más tarde otro.
Hay otro.
Ok, so, esas marcas son de Walmart. Compré
Yo
con
compro las
mi
marcas.
dinero y después,
No, hay que
un momento.
Después, más adelante.
Después es otro producto.
Ahí quédese cerquita porque sí la van a necesitar.
Okay, so when it's olive oil, it's always a problem. Now, I grew up eating olive oil. I know what it's supposed to taste like. So I went into Walmart. I wanted to get good olive oil. So someone really cheap, precio muy bajo. It's okay. No es posible. Porque aceite de olivo usualmente es precio más alto que óleo de maíz y soya. Y compré esos porque en la cabeza pienso, oh, es buen producto. Pero no leía etiqueta bien. So it's important with olive oil to get, if you want the best olive oil, you look for extra virgin olive oil that is cold pressed. So procesado en frío. Es lo mejor. Porque cuando hay temperatura alta, destruye sabores, destruye calidad de aceite olivo. ¿Ok? Mira en botella, si se dice extra virgin olive oil, cold press. Mira en etiqueta. ¿Sí? Cold press. ¿Dice cold press? No, so es un producto presionado de... No, dice extra virgin.
Extra virgen.
No.
Sí, remedio sí dice.
Enfrente, mira enfrente también. Sí. Ok. Algunas veces la compañía pone esa información, pero no es verdad. Pero pone en etiqueta. ¿Ok? Cold press también es muy importante para el sabor bueno de aceite olive. Now look for certification. Sometimes, like if your product is made in California, they will have a little stamp, a certification on the label, right? California Olive Oil Council. So they have a little stamp. Or the International Olive Council. Do you see any certification on the bottle? Mira botella, CI certificado, o no hay información como eso. No hay. The origin. So look and see if it's made in Italy, made in Spain, donde hecho. Es en Italia, en España. Mira. Made in Spain. Okay. Italia, el otro, en Mexico. Do we make olive oil in Mexico? Yes?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Sometimes they bring
In
oil
California.
from somewhere.
California.
Yes, I know.
It's all in California.
Bring it from somewhere.
No, but
And they put it in a bottle.
no, in California.
In California, Mexico, they produce oil
Baja
there.
California, allá, allá.
Okay.
Allá hay vino también.
Okay, so if the label says it's Italian olive oil, we want them to say, you know, product of Italy. All right, you have this date is important. Why? Because the best olive oil shouldn't be more than 1 year shelf life. After that, it gets oxidated, it tastes rancid. So, por favor, si hay una fecha de cosechar.
De cosechar.
Una fecha de
Harvest.
cosechar.
There's none.
Yeah. That's because they are hiding. They are hiding the date. Okay, ¿qué es la fecha para usar el producto? Porque es necesario el producto menos de 1 año para el mejor sabor. ¿Qué es la fecha? Uso para ¿qué fecha?
Usar para caducidad.
¿No hay? 26.
Sí.
Son más de 1 año. ¿Qué fecha es?
January 3, 2027.
Muéstrame cuál es, muéstrame cuál es.
Muy viejo ese producto, muy viejo. No hay fecha.
Antes de
26. Son más de 1 año, no es buen producto. Por lo mejor sabor, lo mejor calidad. Ok, smell. ¿Qué es smell?
Pues, oler. Oler.
Olor. Ok, abrir y si es buen olor o no. Ajá.
Ponle sus dedos y lo mueves.
Hay 8
6. Probar.
ahora, cuando yo
Prueba.
probé eso, no es bueno, es rancid, muy viejo eso. Y eso es nuevo, pero hasta la fecha es más de 1 año. Pienso que está en la tienda para más años. Es muchas gracias, voluntarios. Otro pruebo para aceite, ¿verdad? Es necesario poner en la refrigeradora y aceite oliva, ¿verdad? Cambia el color y en algunas veces pues llega sólido. Sólido. Si es verdad, óleo de, no óleo, aceite de oliva, es posible cuando poner en el refrigerador es sólido. Si no es sólido, no es verdad. Y esos productos no son productos falsos, pero cuestan muchísimo. Compré en Walmart. Qué horrible. Mi dinero. Ok, otro producto. Los voluntarios.
Exacto, al lado de Diego, exacto.
Cuando entran al supermercado hay demasiado marcas de miel, demasiadas. Algunos son falsos, algunos verdad. Podemos mirar el precio. Si el precio es muy bajo, por ejemplo, eso es posible decir que Si el precio es muy bajo, es posible que no es miel, es azúcar con agua. Es posible. ¿Ok? Si el precio es muy bajo. So, con miel es recomendado si hay una finca o una empresa pequeña, un amigo que tiene abejas, es mejor comprar de ellos. ¿Ok? Ok, con esta botella, dice cuando es verdad, decía, the bubble goes up muy despacio, si es verdad, muy rápido, si no es verdad. ¿Ok? Y también podemos probar, poner,
Una gota.
¿Gota? Ok, poner la gota en dedo. Si es muy rápido, poquito. Ok, si pasa muy rápido, no es verdad. Si deja aquí y no pasa rápido, es bien verdad. Ok. Pero es el trick. Sí. So, eso es miel verdad. Es verdad. Sí. El otro es como agua. Es como agua, no es verdad. Ok, gracias por la charla. Hay muchas empresas que aplicar saborizantes, colores, y hay muchas marcas falsas en el supermercado, por eso los dos en Walmart, pero eso es más caro, pero es verdad, es bueno para la salud, sí es verdad, si no es verdad, hay problemas. Ok, gracias voluntarios. So we have a little video here.
Apparently, most store-bought honeys are actually fake. According to simplyhoney.com, fake honey refers to a honey-like product that has been modified with flavors, fillers, dyes, and sugars. And some fake honeys may not even contain any bee honey at all. Instead, it might be manufactured of a mix of glucose and corn syrup. They say that if you place a drop of honey on your finger and the honey spreads, then that's fake honey. But if it holds its composition and remains a drop, then that's true raw honey.
All right.
Apparently.
So we have problems with honey, we have problems with fish. Sometimes on the label they say wild salmon. It means salmon from the sea. Salmon de la mar. Pero en verdad es de finca. They have fish farms. So, but people prefer to buy wild salmon from the ocean. Alright, because in the farms they're feeding the fish with antibiotics and all sorts of harmful chemicals to make people sick for them. Because they try to grow the fish really quickly. And so when you see food, you have to be very careful if you like fish. Buy from, go to Progresso and buy from people who actually go out in the ocean and fish. Okay, same thing with beef. There's one beef called Wagyu beef from Japan, and I went to Japan one time on vacation, and I bought a piece of it, very, very expensive, muy caro, muy caro, pero el sabor, delicioso. Hay muchos restaurantes que dicen Wagyu beef, pero es falso. Y Y aquí hay, like Carl's Jr. y ¿qué más? Burger King dice Angus Beef Burger, pero no sé si es verdad Angus Beef, ok, no sé si es verdad. Es un tipo de carne de res, pero pienso que no es Angus. Angus es diferente, no hay fat. Luego beef has more fat and more succulent. Okay. Otro problema con carne de res, carne en general, beef glue. They use this glue to stick the meat together. Por ejemplo, empezamos con eso y después eso. Hay una goma para fabricar estructura para hacer eso. ¡Qué horrible! No. Una goma para fabricar la forma. Y algunas veces cuando estoy en el supermercado, yo veo
Grietas.
Sí,
Grietas.
grietas. Si hay grietas es porque el goma no funciona bien. Prefiero comprar carne con huesos. Si no puedo ver huesos, pienso, no sé si es carne verdad. Prefiero ver huesos en carne. ¿Ok? Hay una vez en la feria de Ismael, cuando pide taco con carne de res, no es res, es goma con colorizante y sabor. Qué horrible, no puedo comer eso. En grandes eventos es muy importante mirar el producto porque es una oportunidad para comida falsa. En eventos muy grandes es importante ver que
Meat glue, how just much when you're looking at different types of meat? Do you see the different circles? It looks like there are different pieces of meat.
yes, so they use meat glue and put together different pieces of meat. So that's a problem. So solution, as consumers, we want to go and buy the real product. What can we do? Right? First of all, you look at the price. Si el precio es muy bajo, es necesario pensar, ¿es verdad o no? Okay, so look at the price, check the labels, right? Such as food labels with the country of origin. If they put in country and you think, but I don't think they could grow that product in that country. You know, it's a etiquette account. Okay? Buy from trusted sources. So some supermarkets should have good products, others not so much. Okay? So you have to be careful which supermarkets you want to buy for, which shop you want to buy for. En el mercado me gusta comprar comida algunas veces en el mercado San Benito. Pero algunas veces cuando compré frijoles secos, hay piedras. Sí. Hay piedras así. No es frijoles, hay frijoles y piedras para pesar más y pague más. So es un problema en el mercado también. So look at certifications. Sometimes you see a stamp certified by and you think, okay, maybe that product is better. So as a consumer, look at your labels when you are buying food. Look at the product carefully. What does the label say? All right. What else? So it's a question prices. Okay. So look at if there's mislabeling or if they're substituting an expensive ingredient for a cheaper one. We have to be aware of what can be the problems, adulteration. Because sometimes when the manufacturer replaces ingredients with cheaper ingredients, they can be poisonous, bad for our health. So we have to be careful. And be proactive. Is there any food board here where we can report fake food in Mexico? Okay.
Es Procuraduría Federal del Consumidor, pero es something very general for everything.
General,
Not
right.
specific.
Because if we see a huge problem, we think people can get sick, we should really report it. Okay? And keep up to date, if the government is making announcements about fake food or poisonous food, we should pay attention. All right? Now for big manufacturers, if you have a factory and you are manufacturing food, it's your responsibility to keep the product safe. So what can the manufacturers do? Well, there's such a thing called setting up a vulnerability assessment program. So that's for factories. Okay, a vulnerability assessment. When we say vulnerability, the food is vulnerable to fraud and substitution. Right? So we need to set up a team of people at the factory to take care of this vulnerability assessment program. That those people should have access to information. All this information is on the internet. And it tells you over the years which products are subject to fraud and substitution. Honey, olive oil, for many, many years, people have been making fake honey and olive oil. Many years. So you can find this information on the internet. But new problems come all the time. So there are certain websites that people at food manufacturing plants can access and go and look for the information and see what's happening in the food, what is happening. And then when they figure out if they have any ingredients like that in their factory, then they can set up assurance programs or testing programs to test the raw materials that they bring into the factory. Right? So setting up a vulnerability assessment team, so people who are competent enough to develop a plan. You know you're going to be buying many ingredients to make products at the factory. You should have a plan in place and understand the risks. Alright? So we need to see what products we're bringing into the factory. Are they at risk for fraud? Because once you put information on the ingredients on your label, you don't want the government to come and say you're using fake ingredients. So if you have your factory, you want to be sure that all the risky products, you do some sort of evaluation for fraud and substitution. So in terms of getting information regarding threats, this is a list of different online tools. Food Academy, right? They have information on global food fraud from many, many countries all over the world. And current trends, because food fraud has been happening for decades, there's several guidance documents and organizations on the internet where you can go and look for information on food fraud from around the world, many of them. Some you have to pay, some are free. So this one, Food Academy Global Food Fraud Index. In the European Union, some factories would use this. They go on the website and they would find, oh, this thing is moving crazy. Just a minute. Oh no. Okay, I got it. So they have monthly reports on new food fraud incidents that happen, right? And you can find that adulteration of honey is always there because people make fake honey, not just here, but all over the world. Herbs and spices, for example. They say buy whole spice, canela. Es mejor el canela, rama. Es mejor que polvo. ¿Por qué? Es mejor comprar.
Porque no se mezcla.
Sí, algunas veces mezcla con madera y nadie sabe. Es mejor comprar rama. Ok. Especias well, spices are expensive, and a lot of times people dilute them with wood and polvo, otro polvos, horribles. Es mejor comprar like turmeric and that. Alright, so we have food fraud databases on the internet, scientific publications, and even testing. So lots of reports have been done over the years. So at a factory, they should have a team of people to carry out a vulnerability assessment. You look at all the raw materials you're bringing into the factory, and you assess if there's a risk for adulteration or substitution. And here's a long list of questions you can ask, but in three groups. So opportunities for fraud and substitution, motivation for fraud and substitution, and controls. How can we control it? So these are some topics for assessment when the vulnerability assessment team gets together. And they would put, like a traffic light. High risk for vulnerability, for substitution and fraud, red. Medium risk, yellow. Low risk, green. So, let's say you're bringing in cereals, dairy, fish, honey, meat, olive oil, wine. The team would get together and answer all these questions and then assign a color. Red would be the highest risk. Right? So this is just an example of a vulnerability assessment. Now, when you decide which ingredients you're bringing in at high risk for fraud and substitution, then you have to do something about it. So what can we do? Right? We decide we want to be sure we only bring in real products, genuine materials. So we could get a certificate of analysis from the company that is supplying the ingredients. Certificate of analysis tells you what is in the product. So what can they do if the supplier sends you certificate of analysis? What could you do with it? Well,
Verify.
yes, how will you verify it? Against what?
Your own analysis.
That's right. So the company says the certificate of analysis, you compare it with the specification of what you want to receive, and you see if they match. If they don't match, if you see problems, then you should not buy that product. Okay? So some companies, they tell the supplier, every time you ship product to us, give us a certificate of analysis. Another solution, tamper evidence seals. You can tell me what those are good for. Tamper evidence seals. You put in a seal on the ingredient. The supplier sends the ingredient to you with a seal on it. What is that? What's the purpose of that? Yes.
Make sure no one has seen it, because to open it, you need to break it.
That's right. Very good. So if the seal is broken, you know that somebody entered that ingredient, maybe they put garbage in it, right? So using tamper evidence seals. When you receive the ingredients, you want to know that nobody put a fake ingredient or diluted it or anything like that. Enhance supplier approval and supply chain management. Before a factory buys ingredients for a supplier, they should approve the supplier. And there are different ways to approve a supplier. For example, some companies say, I only want to buy ingredients from a local supplier. They don't want to buy from China, it's too far away, maybe it's fake ingredients, we don't know, we want to buy. So they would select the country of origin. They would select a company that has food safety certification, right? Another thing, a history of doing business transactions. If you've done business many times with the site, we buy from them. Mass balance, a short supply chain. Let me show you this. So the supply chain, raw materials, food processing plants, the packaging, food transported to the supermarket and consumer bags. But a long supply chain, let's say the food is made in Turkey, then it goes to an agent The agent sells to a broker. The broker sells to a wholesaler. Then the wholesaler sells to a transport company. That is a really long supply chain. See that? And all along the way, somebody could dilute the product with fake ingredients. It's too long. So they say it's better to have a short supply chain to avoid fraud and substitution. That's one solution that manufacturers can use. And any statement made, like it's GMO free or anything like that, you have to have certificates to back it up. All right, so in conclusion, we have a little video here.
Millions of people suffer from food-related illnesses each year. The CDC estimates that out of 48 million cases, 38 million people didn't know what they ate that made them sick.
USA Today food and travel columnist Larry Olmsted is out with a book called Real Food, Fake Food. It exposes the ways Americans are scammed into buying and eating fraudulent food. And Larry joins us now here at the desk. Thanks for being here. Let's start off with what exactly are you talking about when it comes to fake food? What is that?
It's generally, I'd say it's when you don't get what you think you're buying, but an example would be if you order, say, lobster ravioli and it doesn't contain any lobster, which has been widely documented.
So in your book, you say, you're talking about lobster ravioli, you specifically cite the seafood industry. You say it's rampant with fraud. You use the analogy that if every time you pulled into a gas station and you thought you were filling your tank with gasoline, you were actually filling your tank with dirty water, which is pretty disgusting. That's exactly what the seafood industry is like.
Yes, it's
Okay, the seafood industry, they say, is one of the industries where food fraud taking place all the time. So, in conclusion, food fraud takes place all the time, right? We have, as consumers, if your parents send you to buy food, or if you have your own home and you go out there to buy food, you have to be vigilant. Look and see what you're buying, look at the labels, check the labels carefully. If you buy a product once and you suspect it's fraudulent, don't buy it again. I did that and I wasted my money, okay? So you have to be careful. And if you go on in the future and you work at if you work for a food manufacturing plant, they have to have a vulnerability assessment program in place for raw materials. And it's part of food safety certification. Okay, I have a YouTube channel that I'd like people to join. It's called Food Safety Smart, and I'm going to ask you all to subscribe a mi canal de YouTube, por favor, Food Safety Smart. Cada semana voy a poner entrevistas con cientistas de alimentos cada semana. Y hay información de inocuidad de alimentos y también información de job. Where to find jobs in the food industry, what types of jobs are needed. I'm interviewing people I interviewed from Mexico, United States, Canada, and other countries about the food industry and what the food industry needs in terms of careers. So I would encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We started with config, and we will have more videos coming in. Muchas gracias por la